Perfect. Thank you so much, Sandra. Thank you, everybody, for joining us this evening. I know it's 6 p.m. over there in Spain. Right now, it is early in the morning here in Los Angeles in California. So again, thank you for joining. A little bit about myself. So as Sandra already mentioned, I work for the California State University Northridge. My name is Boris, and I actually was an international exchange student myself. So I do feel your struggles, and I do understand that there sometimes can be a little bit of a hesitation, or it can be a little bit complicated and overwhelming if you're looking for, the right graduate program or the right university fit. So I'm here to hopefully alleviate any of these fears that you might have. And definitely, please, at the end, if you have any questions, don't be shy, don't hesitate to reach out. Right, a couple of things first. So I was just thinking about the topic now, in terms of, obviously, from a student perspective, what should I keep in mind if I'm looking for a graduate school in the US? And there are a couple of points that I mentioned here on this slide. So these are some of the top student reasons to choose a graduate program, and I will speak to each one of these points in detail. So we have location, campus size, academics, cost, admissions, and then hashtag you're welcome here, which I will explain later on exactly what that means and why I picked that point as well. Next slide, please. Thank you. So first off, location. Obviously, the United States, as all of you know, is a huge country, and we have close to 4,000 higher education institutions in the US. So 4,000 higher education institutions in the US. So the first thing that, of course, you kind of want to figure out when you take a look at studying in the US and finding your right graduate program, your right master program, you kind of want to see, all right, where do I want to study, right? Because not only going by institutions and academics, but also by region. So for example, if you decide to study in the Northeast of the US, there are, certain differences, sometimes even slight cultural differences, as opposed to, let's say, you want to study in the Southeast, so the South or the Northeast. So you just want to make sure and get a better understanding of what your goal is. So a couple of things here, obviously, to consider is climate. I think that's one of the more obvious ones. If you are okay with having seasons, then of course, if you want to go to the Northeast, the Great Lakes area, the Midwest, if you like a lot of sunshine, and I know in Spain you do have quite a bit of sunshine, obviously, you might want to consider, if that's important to you, you might want to consider either the Southern United States, the Sun Belt, the Southwest, California, the West. So it really depends. So already there, you kind of can figure out, okay, where would I like to study, and what type of institutions and universities are in that area. So keep that in mind. And yeah, also slightly cultural. There might be some slight cultural differences by the region within the US as well. So just depending on what your preferences are. Next slide, please. Oh yeah, there was an animation. Okay, perfect. Then the next thing you might want to take a look at, of course, is campus size. So what are you comfortable with? If you take a look at a university, do you want to study, at a big university which has 50,000 plus students, or would you prefer a more intimate environment with a couple of hundred students, maybe a couple of thousands, maybe a medium size, institution that has, let's say, 10,000 students. So that's another factor that you have to consider in your search. So try to narrow it down first. So go by location, go by campus size, and kind of see what you're most familiar with. Definitely something that can be a very big range here in the US as well. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. Speaking of campus size, so things that you'd like to consider is the class size, individual class sizes. So if you have a big institution and a big student enrollment, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have humongous class sizes or enormous class sizes. You can also have a lot of faculty and a lot of staff that is there to support you. So dive a little bit deeper into that field and see, all right, what can I figure out about an institution, let's say, that I'm interested in? What is the average class and course size? So you can see how much support you would be getting individually as well as a student. Student to faculty ratio is another one. So you can see, all right, apart from a typical class size, you can see how many students you have per professor or per faculty. That might be another good indicator for you to see how much support you might be getting and how much individual attention you might be getting at that university. Diversity, that's another big point. So depending on the institution that you're choosing, some student bodies are very diverse here in the US at higher education institutions. Some may not be as diverse, but overall, if you're looking for a lot of diversity, try to factor that in as well. And I'm sure if you take a look at a couple of campuses or a couple of universities that you're interested in, you will find that information on their website as well. Campus culture, very important. So what do I mean by campus culture? Well, it goes hand in hand with what type of facilities are available on campus, what you can do on campus, what type of campus it is. Is it a closed campus? Is it all close together? Is it in an urban environment? Is it in a rural environment? Again, that goes also back to location, right? You want to see where the institution is located. Is it easy to get to? Is there an active, student life, as in student organizations, or is there an active, what we call in the US, Greek life, so sororities and fraternities that you can join even as an international student, and events that take place on campus. I always recommend for students to take a look at the either academic calendar that most universities post on their webpage, or just a student calendar if you have it available, so you can take a look at what you can find on campus and what type of activities you can find on campus throughout the semester. So that already will give you a pretty good understanding of if you would fit in, if there's a good social fit for you for that institution. All right, next slide, please. Speaking of academics, of course, that should also be another very big point for you to consider, right? You want to make sure that, hey, all right, I now kind of figured out where I would like to study in the US. I kind of narrowed down my choices to specific universities. And then, of course, first and foremost, you want to make sure that the program that you would like to study in graduate studies, that is available at that university. Determining your program, determining your master program, your graduate program is very, very important. So please take your time when you do this, explore your own motivations, and please keep an open mind and always do your own research. Figure out, all right, this is the program that I'm looking at. Take a look at maybe potential career opportunities down the line. Of course, make sure that it's something that you're actually really interested in, so that it will be manageable for you, the workload, and that you stick to it, right? You don't want to start a graduate program and then halfway in, after maybe, let's say, 1 year, you realize, oh, all right, well, it's not really the right fit and I should have studied something else. So take the time, make sure that you pick what fits you best, and then also make sure that the institution who, if you already have a list of institutions that you narrowed it down to, that they offer that specific program. Also, when it comes to, your own career goals, please make sure that, or try to make sure that the university that you're looking at, that they do have career services in, available to you. So career services, that can be a number of things. A lot of universities do have a career center, or sometimes even academic colleges at a US university might have an in-house career center specifically helping you with your graduate major or with your graduate program to connect to local employers, to seek out internships. So all of that is very important. Building your professional network here in the United States is extremely important. Seeking out internships, gaining hands-on experience while you study, that will definitely help you anywhere in the world, right? You will gain that invaluable hands-on experience. So make sure that the university that you pick, that they do have something like that in place, and some support there as well, so to gain hands-on experience. Then of course you want to, once you narrowed that down, did a lot of research. I know this is, again, you have to do a lot of research, kind of makes sense. You might also want to connect with a university. And at the end of the presentation, I will give you an example of how you can do that. But generally speaking, you should talk first to, if you have any questions, to the International Admissions Office. Most universities here in the US will have an International Admissions Office, and that should be at least your first point of contact if you have any specific admission questions regarding a certain graduate program. But then, of course, you can also do a little bit more research on the actual website and see if there are, for example, email and contact information for graduate coordinators. So let's say you have a specific graduate program. There's a pretty decent chance that there is a dedicated graduate coordinator for that program that you can ask very program specific questions to. And those contact information you will often find on each university's website. So I would recommend that as a next step. Of course, if you already know somebody somehow that has gone to that university, an alumni, if you can connect to an alumni and ask questions this way, even better, right? You get a first-hand account of their experience at that university, so I can highly recommend that as well. A lot of universities will organize alumni events throughout the world. So if whenever you see that right now, a lot of things has shifted, as all of you know, to the virtual arena. So if you see any of these events that a university does, let's say you have a specific university in mind, make sure to join. Just see what they're saying, even if it's not necessarily an event that is specifically aimed at international students. Maybe you can just sign up and just see, okay, what is this webinar about? What does it tell me about the university? And it might give you a better understanding. So it can't hurt to invest that time, and it might give you just a better understanding of, even the campus culture and how things work. Rankings and academic accreditations, some other considerations, of course, very important. Rankings can be a little bit, I would say, regard rankings with caution, right? Because there are numerous ranking websites out there for US institutions, and rankings can go in a very generalized way, right? The top 100 universities, for example, in the US by academics, but then you also have very specific rankings for graduate programs specifically. So if you pick a certain field and if you have a certain graduate program that you are interested in, if you look at rankings, make sure that you compare apples to apples, right? Make sure that you, if you look at rankings, that you maybe just look for that specific graduate program, because it might differ from the overall university ranking. So it's just a little tip here, because it can be sometimes a little bit confusing because there's so much information out there. Also so many different websites where you can find different rankings. So just be mindful here. Academic accreditations, that's one other big point. Please make sure that the university that you pick has an academic accreditation, right? You want to make sure that is something that the university has, that is a university in good standing, because sometimes you may come across a university that is not really, that doesn't really have an academic accreditation, and you just want to be careful there and not to enroll with a university that does not have that. Research option, internship, and job opportunities. So research options, again, take a look at, if you again have your graduate program, what type of research options the academic department offers to its students, if it's more research based or not. And then also, if, for example, if there are opportunities available to you, such as teaching assistant jobs. Teaching assistant jobs, a lot of graduate programs offer that, also to international students here in the US, where you can just go ahead and work on campus, even on an F1 student visa. And there are certain regulations that you have to consider, but that is generally available at a lot of universities here in the US, and it might help you with some of the costs that you incur while you study in the US. And even student jobs or assistant jobs, student assistant jobs might be available to you. In a lot of cases, sometimes these pay minimum wage. Minimum wage can vary by state. So just, again, a lot of considerations that you want to keep in mind. All right, next slide, please.